The morning of Marcus's wedding began the same way every family event had for the last 5 years, with my mother calling to remind me how not to embarrass anyone. I was in my Fairmont hotel room, staring at the bridesmaid dress Patricia had picked for me, a mustard yellow disaster that made me look like a fruit left too long in the sun, when Mom called with her final lecture. "Emma, darling, I know this will be challenging," she began in that voice she uses, a blend of pity and superiority. "You'll be surrounded by Marcus's successful colleagues, and Patricia's family is very accomplished. Just remember, not everyone was meant to be a doctor or lawyer." "I'll do my best," I said, pulling the zipper up the back of the dress that managed to insult both my body shape and my dignity. "And please, don't bring up your job situation unless someone asks directly. Today is about Marcus. We don't need things getting awkward." My job situation. That's what they call it now. Not my work. Not my company. A situation. Like I was suffering from some kind of employment disorder. The truth? I founded Anderson Global Logistics, a $4.2 billion supply chain corporation with 85,000 employees in 47 countries. We move 30% of Fortune 500 products worldwide and developed cold chain systems that transformed pharmaceutical distribution. We were days away from finalizing the biggest merger the industry had seen in decades. But to my family? I worked in a grocery store. It started innocently enough. 7 years ago, while building my first distribution center, I worked overnight shifts at Safeway to learn store-level logistics firsthand: inventory flow, supplier timing, customer demand patterns. Most executives rely on consultants. I learned by breaking down pallets at 3 a.m. When relatives asked what I was doing, I'd said, food retail and supply chain logistics. Somehow, that turned into Emma works at a supermarket. And once that assumption stuck, trying to correct it only made me sound like I was delusional. The first time I tried to explain the company, Uncle Richard had smiled sympathetically and said, "Good for you, sweetie. It's important to stay optimistic, even in service jobs." When I mentioned hiring my first 100 employees, Aunt Susan beamed and said, "You got promoted to department supervisor? That's wonderful." Eventually, I just let them believe what made sense to them. It was easier than fighting their disbelief. The rehearsal dinner was particularly painful. Patricia's family were the real-deal successful type, a construction firm owner, a startup founder who'd recently exited for $50 million, a federal judge. They were warm, confident, used to excellence. "So Emma," Patricia's brother Jason asked lightly, "Marcus mentioned you work in food service. Are you planning to open a restaurant?" Before I could speak, Marcus cut in. "Oh no, Emma's not entrepreneurial. She's at a grocery store. Solid, basic work." The silence that followed was thick. Jason recovered gracefully, but I definitely saw Patricia's parents exchange a quiet, bewildered look, the kind that asked, how did this family produce one underachiever? "Grocery logistics are actually very intricate," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I'm sure," Patricia's father replied politely, and immediately changed the topic to Marcus's law career. Later, I overheard Patricia's mother speaking to mine near the bar. "Patricia said they're considering Emma as a godmother," she said. "Oh yes," Mom replied. "She's wonderful with children. Of course, she's not able to contribute much financially, but she has a big heart." "Financially?" "Well, she's still figuring her career out. We help where we can. Family support is important. But the children will have plenty of successful role models, so it balances out." I left. I spent the rest of the night in my room reviewing merger briefs, trying not to scream into a pillow. And reminding myself why I came in the first place. And of course, to family who support us in their own ways. My sister, Emma, who traveled all the way from Seattle, even though I know the trip must have been a financial stretch for her. She works in food service, and that kind of humble, necessary work deserves appreciation. The applause that followed was slow, sugary, and pitying. A few guests gave me the same soft-eyed look people reserve for someone in rehab or fresh off a divorce. It was during the reception dancing that everything shifted. I stepped outside for air and accidentally caught Patricia's mother speaking to Marcus near the terrace bar, her voice low and tense. "Marcus, be honest with me," she said. "Is Emma financially secure?" Patricia mentioned wanting her to be godmother, and, well, Emma has clearly had difficulties. Marcus laughed like the question was ridiculous. "Emma? No. She can barely handle her own bills. She's been stuck in that same grocery job for years. No ambition. She's just not cut out for more." Mrs. Whitfield let out a breath of relief. "I just didn't want the wrong influence around our grandchildren." Patricia's family prides itself on achievement. Her father built his business, her brother just sold his company for millions. "We want our future children surrounded by examples of excellence." "You won't have to worry," Marcus assured her. "Emma is basically the one we take care of. Mom covers her rent sometimes. We help with her car payments. She tries, bless her heart, but she's never going to be successful." Not a single word of that was true. I had never taken a penny from any of them. They simply needed a narrative that made my choices look like failure rather than independence. I turned to head back inside, only to hear another conversation nearby, my cousin Derek talking to members of Patricia's family. "Did you see Emma's car?" Derek said. The valet looked confused trying to start the thing. "It must be ancient." One of the cousins said she might be using food stamps, another voice chimed in. "It's sad," Derek went on. "Everyone in the family has achieved something, except her. My mom thinks maybe she has an undiagnosed learning issue. I mean, who stays in the same entry-level position for 7 years? At least she seems content," someone offered weakly. "Sure," Derek said. "If she doesn't realize how far behind she is." That was enough. I pulled out my phone. "Ready for pickup." David, my security chief, replied instantly. "ETA 10 minutes. Helicopter prepped." I returned to the ballroom. I planned to slip out quietly. But Marcus had other plans. He tapped his champagne glass. "Everyone," he announced, "we are so grateful to be surrounded by such accomplished individuals tonight, entrepreneurs, surgeons, executives, people who truly embody drive and success." He scanned the crowd, then landed directly on me. "And we also appreciate those in our family who choose a simpler path. My sister, Emma, who kindly traveled here even though I know it wasn't easy financially. She works in food service. Not everyone needs to chase status." The room clapped. The sympathy was suffocating. "She reminds us there is dignity in modest lives," Marcus continued. "A lesson we can all learn from." Patricia's father stood, glass lifted. "To Emma, for showing us that happiness doesn't require achievement." Glasses raised. Smiles softened. I was being toasted like a cautionary children's story. Then my phone buzzed. A tall man in a black suit stepped up beside me. Former Secret Service. Calm. Precise. "Miss Anderson," he said clearly, ensuring half the tables could hear, "I apologize for the interruption, but we need to depart. The helicopter is waiting. Your 9 o'clock call with the Singapore Executive Board is about to begin. They require your authorization to finalize the $1.8 billion Chin Industries acquisition before the Tokyo market opens." Marcus' champagne flute slipped and shattered on the floor. "Safeway," I said. "If you've bought groceries at any major chain in the past 5 years, there's a strong chance our systems handled that product's journey from the farm to the shelf. We pioneered pharmaceutical cold chain logistics, built the routing software Amazon uses for grocery deliveries, and developed the inventory technology that most retailers rely on today." Mrs. Whitfield stared at me like I'd just announced I was royalty from another dimension. "Your company," she managed. "Forbes listed me at number 47 among the richest self-made women," I replied. "But honestly, I care more about the fact that my company employs over 85,000 people worldwide and has been carbon neutral for 3 years. Patricia was the first to speak. Marcus, you told me she worked at a grocery store. She does work in food retail, Marcus said, visibly scrambling. That's what she said. Food retail logistics, I clarified. I oversee supply chain operations for nearly every major grocery chain in North America. And we're rapidly growing in Europe and Asia. When I said I work in food retail, I meant I manage how food gets to consumers, at scale. Uncle Richard stared into his bourbon like maybe the answers were floating in the ice. I did appreciate your offer to review my resume, though, I added lightly. Very thoughtful. But I think my current role is going fine. David checked his watch. Ms. Anderson, we need to leave. The Singapore call can't be delayed. The Chin Industries merger signs in a few hours. If we miss this window, the deal could collapse, and that affects 18,000 jobs. Thank you, David. I turned back to Marcus and Patricia. Congratulations again. I truly wish you both a happy life together. Wait. Marcus grabbed my arm, letting go when David stepped forward. Emma, why didn't you tell us? Why let everyone think? Tell you what? That I was successful? Would it have changed how you treated me? Of course it would. Would it? I asked. Because from what I overheard tonight, you all seemed very comfortable believing your version of me, the barely getting by sister who needed help. The one who never tried. The one who wasn't smart enough for anything more. We never said that, Derek blurted. You said exactly that, I replied. On the terrace. Right before the part where you discussed my possible learning disability. And my supposed food stamps. Patricia's father looked at me like the ground had shifted. You actually run a billion-dollar corporation? She's on Forbes, a younger cousin said quietly, phone in hand. Emma Anderson. Estimated net worth, $2.3 billion. A ripple went through the room, shock snapping into place, face by face. Aunt Susan frowned, voice tight. If that's true, why do you dress so plainly? Why drive an old car? Why live like a regular person? Because money isn't the point, I said simply. I thought family mattered more than proving anything. I thought being grounded was a good thing. I didn't realize humility would be mistaken for failure. Marcus looked bewildered. But you let us believe you were struggling. I didn't let you believe anything, I said. You assumed. You built a whole story about my life, complete with financial problems I've never had, because the truth didn't fit your expectations. Patricia shook her head. But you said you worked in food retail. And every time I tried to explain, you nodded, smiled, and changed the subject. You never asked what I actually did. Silence. Heavy and sharp. You know what's ironic? I continued. When I missed Christmas 3 years ago, you all said it was because I couldn't afford a plane ticket. I was actually in Tokyo negotiating a contract that brought thousands of jobs back to the US. And when I missed Derek's wedding, you said I was working extra shifts. I was in Germany opening a logistics hub employing over 1,500 people. Derek paled. Miss Anderson, David said gently. The helicopter is ready. I nodded. I started walking. The crowd parted like I was royalty now, or a ghost. At the doorway, I looked back one last time. For what it's worth. I truly hope you find happiness. But love requires seeing people as they actually are, not as the version that's easiest to understand. Maybe that's something to keep in mind. The elevator ride to the roof was quiet except for soft jazz. The helicopter rotors thundered overhead. How was the wedding? David asked. Informative, I said. We lifted off, city lights blazing below, my phone buzzing non-stop with calls I didn't intend to answer. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. The people who mattered would stay. The rest were never mine to lose. Straight to Singapore? The pilot asked. Actually, I said, glancing at the dress. Let's swing by the office first. This color is a crime. And the press will absolutely be watching. David gave a small smile. Told you mustard yellow, wasn't it? As we ascended above the skyline, I felt something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Unburdened. Autonomous. Free.